You did everything right this year. You picked out the healthiest seedlings at the nursery. You amended your soil. You planted at the right time. And now, in the middle of summer, you're standing in your garden watching your tomato leaves curl, your squash wilt by 2 in the afternoon, and your once green lettuce turn a sickly yellow at the edges. You've been watering. You've been watering a lot. So why does it feel like your garden is dying right in front of you, no matter what you do? I want you to know something before we go any further. This is not your fault, and it is not bad luck. I have walked hundreds of gardens over the years, from tiny raised beds on a 1/4 acre to 5-acre homesteads, and I see the exact same 11 mistakes over and over again. They are quiet mistakes. Nobody tells you about them at the garden center. Nobody puts them on the back of the seed packet. And they are the reason so many people give up on gardening every single summer, convinced they just don't have a green thumb. When the truth is, nobody ever showed them how water actually behaves in soil, in heat, and in a living root system. So stick with me for the next half hour, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why your plants are struggling, and more importantly, you're going to know how to fix it starting today. And I promise you, mistake number 3 on this list is the one that trips up even experienced gardeners. The one that quietly kills more plants than drought ever does, because it looks exactly like the opposite problem. Let's get into it. Number 11, watering on a fixed schedule instead of reading the soil. The single most common mistake I see in every garden, every season, is treating watering like a chore you check off a list. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, water the garden. It feels responsible. It feels like you're doing your job as a gardener. But your plants don't care what day of the week it is. They care about what's happening in the top 4 to 6 inches of soil around their roots. And that changes constantly with temperature, humidity, wind, and how much the plant itself is transpiring that day. A 95-degree day with dry wind will pull moisture out of your soil twice as fast as a mild, overcast 80-degree day. If you're on a rigid schedule, you're either drowning your plants on the cool days or leaving them gasping on the hot ones. Here's what I do instead, and what I want you to start doing. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil before you turn on the hose. If it's still damp down there, walk away. Come back that evening or the next morning. If it's dry and crumbly, water deeply right then, regardless of what your calendar says. Get yourself a simple soil moisture meter if you don't trust your finger. They cost less than a good garden trowel. This one change, just breaking free of the calendar and reading the actual soil in front of you, will solve more summer plant problems than almost anything else on this list. Your garden is talking to you every single day. The schedule just makes you stop listening. I also want you to pay attention to how the weather over the last 3 or 4 days has behaved, not just today. If you had a heavy rain 2 days ago, your soil might still be perfectly moist, even in 90-degree heat. And watering on top of that is where you start creeping into the overwatering territory we'll talk about later. On the flip side, a string of dry, windy days will pull moisture out of soil faster than a single hot but still humid day. Keep a small notebook or a note on your phone, just a quick line every evening about rainfall and how the soil felt when you checked it. Within 2 or 3 weeks, you'll start to develop an intuitive feel for your specific garden, your specific soil, and your specific microclimate. And that intuition is worth more than any watering chart you'll find online, because those charts were never written for your yard. Number 10, watering in the heat of the day. I understand the temptation. It's noon, your plants look a little droopy, and you feel like you need to do something right now. So you grab the hose and soak everything down in the blazing early afternoon sun. I need you to stop doing this, and here's the honest reason why. When you water in full midday heat, a huge percentage of that water, sometimes as much as 30 to 50% depending on your climate, evaporates before it ever reaches the root zone where your plant can actually use it. You're not helping your plant, you're mostly just humidifying the air above your garden bed. There's a second problem that's even worse. Water droplets sitting on leaves in bright, direct sun can act almost like tiny magnifying lenses. And combined with the heat stress your plant is already under, this can scorch foliage, leaving brown, crispy patches that weaken the whole plant right when it needs every leaf it has to keep photosynthesizing and recovering. The wilting you see at noon on a 90-degree day is very often not your plant asking for water. It's a normal, temporary defense mechanism where the plant curls or droops its leaves to reduce surface area and slow water loss through transpiration. If that same plant perks back up on its own once the sun goes down, it did not need you to intervene at all. Water early in the morning, ideally before 8, so the plant has moisture available going into the heat of the day, or in the early evening after the sun has dropped, so water has all night to soak in without a race against evaporation. Number 9. Shallow watering that trains roots to stay near the surface. This one is sneaky because it looks like you're doing everything right. You water every day, sometimes twice a day in a heat wave, and your plants seem fine for a while. But what you're actually doing is training your root system to be lazy and shallow. Plant roots grow toward moisture. If the only moisture available is always in the top inch of soil, because that's as deep as your quick daily watering ever penetrates, your plant has no reason to send roots down deep, where the soil stays cool and moist, even during a dry spell. You end up with a root system that is completely dependent on you, that can't handle even one missed watering. And that becomes catastrophically vulnerable the moment you go on vacation or a hose breaks. The fix is deep. Infrequent watering instead of shallow, frequent watering. When you do water, water long enough and slow enough that moisture penetrates 6 to 8 inches down, sometimes deeper for established trees and shrubs. For most vegetable garden beds, this means running a soaker hose or drip line for an hour or more, rather than 5 minutes with a spray nozzle. Then let the surface actually dry out somewhat before you water again. This encourages roots to chase that moisture downward, building a deep, resilient root system that can survive a hot, dry stretch without you having to babysit it every single day. Deep roots are drought insurance. Shallow roots are a constant emergency waiting to happen. I like to actually verify this with a shovel a couple times a season, not just guess. Dig a small test hole about 8 inches deep an hour or so after a deep watering session, right at the edge of the root zone, where it won't disturb the plant. If that soil is uniformly moist all the way down, you've done it right. If the bottom few inches are still bone dry while the top is soaked, your water isn't penetrating deep enough, and you need to slow your flow rate down and extend your watering time so gravity has time to pull that moisture downward. Number 8, wetting the foliage instead of the soil. Overhead watering, whether from a sprinkler or just spraying the whole plant down with a hose nozzle, feels satisfying. It looks like rain. But most of the water that lands on leaves either evaporates in the sun or just runs off onto the ground beside the root zone, never actually soaking into the soil where the roots need it. Worse than the waste of water is what wet foliage does for disease. Tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, and melons are all extremely prone to fungal issues like powdery mildew, early blight, and downy mildew. And every single one of those pathogens thrives when leaves stay wet, especially overnight. If you're spraying your plants down in the evening, you are creating the exact humid conditions that fungal spores need to germinate and spread. Direct your water at the base of the plant, right where the stem meets the soil. If you're using a sprinkler because that's what your setup allows, run it in the early morning. Better yet, invest in soaker hoses or drip irrigation for your vegetable beds. It's not expensive, it takes an afternoon to set up, and it delivers water exactly where it's needed while keeping your foliage dry. Number 7. Giving every plant in the garden the same amount of water. Your tomatoes, your peppers, your lettuce, your squash, and your herbs do not have the same water needs. Leafy greens like lettuce and spinach have shallow, fine root systems and need consistent light moisture. They'll bolt and turn bitter fast if they dry out even briefly in summer heat. Tomatoes and peppers, on the other hand, actually develop better flavor and are less prone to problems like blossom end rot and split fruit when you let the soil dry slightly between deep waterings. Mediterranean herbs like rosemary, thyme, and oregano want to be on the dry side almost all the time and will rot at the roots if you treat them like your thirsty zucchini plants. Group plants with similar water needs together when you're planning your garden layout next season. This alone makes management dramatically easier. This idea has a name in the homesteading world: hydrozoning. Think of your garden in 3 rough zones. Your thirsty zone holds your leafy greens, your celery, your cucumbers, anything with big, soft leaves and shallow roots that wilts fast. Your moderate zone holds most of your fruiting vegetables: tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, beans, things that want deep, less frequent watering. Your dry zone holds your Mediterranean herbs, and if you're growing things like lavender or certain native perennials, those go here too. Number 6, skipping mulch and letting bare soil bake in the sun. If there is one single habit that will cut your summer watering workload in half, it's mulch. Bare soil exposed to full summer sun can lose an enormous amount of moisture to evaporation every single day, moisture that never gets used by your plant at all. A 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch, whether that's straw, shredded leaves, wood chips, or grass clippings, acts like a lid on a pot. It dramatically slows evaporation, keeps soil temperature more stable so roots aren't cooking in 90+ degree soil, suppresses weeds, and as it breaks down, it feeds your soil biology. I mulch every single bed in my garden by early summer, and I can often go 2 to 3 days longer between deep waterings compared to bare soil beds right next to them. It is the cheapest, highest return investment you can make. Number 5. Ignoring how much faster container plants dry out. If you're growing in pots, raised beds with thin walls, or hanging baskets, you are dealing with a completely different watering reality. Containers are surrounded by air on all sides, which means they heat up fast and lose moisture from the sides as well as the top. A pot might genuinely need water once, sometimes twice, a day during a heat wave. Check containers daily during peak summer, and don't just glance at the surface. Stick your finger down an inch or two, since container soil can look dry on top while still being damp deeper down, or the reverse. If you're going away for even a couple of days in summer, container plants are the first thing that will suffer. So set up a simple drip system on a timer, or at minimum, group containers together in partial afternoon shade. Terracotta looks beautiful, but it's porous and wicks moisture out through the sides of the pot. Lighter colored pots genuinely help since dark colors absorb far more heat from direct sun. And self-watering containers with a built-in reservoir are worth every penny if you travel often or simply have a lot of pots to manage, since they buy you several extra days of buffer. Number 4. Overreacting to midday wilting. We touched on this a bit already, but it deserves its own moment because it causes so much unnecessary anxiety and, ironically, so much overwatering. You walk out at 1 in the afternoon, it's 98 degrees, and your squash leaves are drooping dramatically. Your gut instinct screams that the plant is dying of thirst, and you rush over with the hose. But large-leafed plants will often wilt in the peak heat of the day as a completely normal protective response, closing down to cut water loss, then bouncing right back in the evening. The real test is simple. Check that same plant again in the early evening. If it has recovered, it did not need extra water. If it's still wilted the next morning, that's your real signal that the soil is actually dry. Number 3. Confusing underwatering with overwatering. Root rot and reaching for the hose when the real problem is too much water. This mistake destroyed entire crops in gardens run by people gardening for over a decade. A plant suffering from root rot shows almost the exact same visible symptoms as a plant suffering from drought. Yellowing leaves, wilting, stunted growth, leaves that droop and feel almost limp. Because our instinct is always to give it more water, this is exactly what most people do. They see wilting, they assume thirst, and they water more at the precise moment the roots are already drowning and beginning to rot. Root rot happens when soil stays saturated long enough that the tiny air pockets between soil particles fill up with water instead of oxygen. Roots need oxygen just as much as they need water. Without oxygen, the fine feeder roots start to suffocate and decay. The plant becomes physically less able to take up water and nutrients. The plant is drowning and starving for water at the same time. Here is how you actually tell the difference, and this is the single most valuable diagnostic skill I can give you. Dig down 2 to 4 inches near the base of the wilting plant before you touch that hose. If the soil is already moist, wet, or even soggy, and the plant is still wilting, you are looking at root rot, and adding water will accelerate the decline. Stop watering entirely and improve drainage if you can. Gently check the roots for that telltale sour, rotten smell and dark, mushy texture rather than firm, pale, healthy roots. If instead the soil is dry and crumbly, then yes, the plant needs water. This single check, dig before you decide, has saved more plants than I can count. I need you to trust the soil, not just the leaves. The soil never lies to you. The leaves can tell the same story for 2 opposite reasons. Root rot doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly over days or even weeks. By the time you see obvious wilting and yellowing, the damage to the root system is often already significant. This is why prevention matters. But the opposite problem happens too. Water pulled straight from a deep well can be significantly colder than the surrounding soil, causing a temperature shock that stresses the plant and temporarily slows nutrient uptake. Number 2. Using cold water straight from the hose or well on hot summer roots. Water sitting in a garden hose left out in the sun can actually get scalding hot, hot enough to shock roots on contact. The simple fix is to let hose water sit and equalize with ambient temperature, or use a rain barrel that's been sitting in the sun, which is also better for your plants in general since it doesn't have chlorine or minerals. Sandy soil drains extremely fast. Water can pass straight through and out of the root zone within hours. These gardens need more frequent, though still deep, watering and benefit from mulch and organic matter. Number 1, watering the same way regardless of your actual soil type. We're going to end where, honestly, everything on this list actually begins, because your soil type determines how every single other mistake plays out. Clay soil holds water for a very long time and drains slowly, which means the same watering schedule that would be perfectly appropriate for a sandy garden can waterlog a clay garden and set up exactly the root rot situation. If you don't know your soil type, take a handful of moist soil and squeeze it. If it falls apart when you open your hand, you've got sandy soil. If it holds a tight ball and you can smear it, you've got heavy clay. Loamy middle is ideal. Once you know which one you're dealing with, every other piece of advice gets more precise. Sandy soil gardeners lean toward more frequent watering. Clay soil gardeners slow down and watch for root rot signs. Knowing your soil is the foundation. And here's something worth remembering. Your soil isn't fixed forever. Every load of compost and season of mulch is slowly shifting your soil structure toward that ideal loamy middle ground. It's a journey, not an overnight fix. And most importantly, you know to dig before you decide whether a wilting plant needs more water or none at all. That last one alone will save plants this summer that would otherwise have been lost to good intentions. I want you to go do one thing right now. Walk out to your garden, dig your finger 2 inches into the soil next to your most stressed-looking plant, and find out what's really going on before you touch that hose. If you made it this far, you now understand summer watering better than the vast majority of people. You know to read the soil instead of the calendar, to water deep instead of shallow, to water roots instead of leaves. And most importantly, you know to dig before you decide whether a wilting plant needs more water or none at all. That last one alone will save plants this summer that would otherwise have been lost to good intentions. I want you to go do one thing right now. Walk out to your garden, dig your finger 2 inches into the soil next to your most stressed-looking plant, and find out what's really going on before you touch that hose. Tell me down in the comments which mistake on this list hit closest to home for you, because I guarantee you're not the only one, and I read every single comment. If this helped you, there's more where this came from, and I'll see you in the next one.